All right, hey everyone. I'm not sure if you guys have seen the news over the weekend. Some pretty hot news over the weekend of the US raiding Venezuela and capturing their president. We're gonna distill about what is actually happening and how is it going to affect the stock market. So make sure to watch this video before the market opens today, okay? Because we're going to look at how prices might potentially move after this. Now, before that, if you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe. It will help me. It will really help me to keep making these videos for you. Now let's see what actually happened. So this actually happened back in about 2 days ago, where Donald Trump tweeted to say that they have successfully carried out a large-scale strike against Venezuela and its leader Nicolás Maduro, and captured and flown out of the country. Okay, and you can see this is a picture of him being captured lah, right, in the plane. Donald Trump actually posted this. Now, there are two political sides here that is people are talking about. One side is saying that the US have no right to attack Venezuela and capture Maduro, and another side saying is that the Venezuela people are finally free. Now, this video is not to debate which side is valid or right, okay? We are not here to discuss politics, but rather we are going to see how this geopolitical event will affect the overall stock market, including equities, gold, and crypto. Okay, so during Donald Trump's news conference, when he came out and shared this, right, he said that he is going to be very strongly involved in Venezuela's oil industry. Okay, and he specifically said that he's going to have very large, the US oil companies to go in, spend billions of dollars, and fix the broken oil infrastructure in Venezuela and start making money. In addition, he also said that the US will sell large amounts of oil pumped from Venezuela. Okay, so immediately, right before we look into why did he specifically talk about the Venezuela oil industry, let's look at how US companies are currently reacting to this news. So this was just posted a few hours ago. You can see literally almost all US companies are actually up, like in futures trading, pre-market trading, overnight trading, basically. You can see Chevron is up 11% now, Exxon is up 7%, including other oil companies as well. So why is this happening? Okay, apart from just what Trump's saying, why is so focused on Venezuela's oil reserve? It is because that Venezuela actually holds the largest oil reserve in the world at 300 billion barrels, and they hold nearly one-fifth of the global oil reserves. Okay, now the US, what Trump said is that he is going to run Venezuela with the large US oil companies moving in, right, according to him. And what does this mean is that the US will now potentially control the largest oil reserve in the world. Trump also said that their Venezuela's oil reserve was not damaged, and that the US will be very much involved in the oil industry. And he also said that China is going to get oil. Okay, so you can see that on this list, right? It's a very strategic thing that is happening over here. Not just Trump raid Venezuela, capture president. That's all. There's actually a lot of layers to this, which I'll explain. But before that, I want you to notice how you see the colors, right? You can see that there's two colors here. There's blue, right? A lot of blue, and including a few black barrels, Canada, Russia, and US. So what is all this? Now, the different colors, right, represents OPEC country and non-OPEC countries. Okay, what is OPEC? Okay, OPEC stands for the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Companies. So basically, it's a group of major oil producing countries that coordinates oil productions and policy in order to manage the balance between supply and prices of oil. So they do not directly adjust the prices of oil, but what they do is they manage the supply so that they can influence oil prices. Okay, basically less oil supply, so less oil supply, okay, prices tend to go up. So same for the other way, right? Oil supply goes up, okay, prices will go down. This is the overall general relation, simple terms lah. And as of now, OPEC has all of these countries, right? And what they do is they set the production targets. Like, okay, this month we're going to set, or this quarter they're going to set this supply of oil that is going out, right, in order to influence the prices lah. So they will agree how much oil they will produce, and if they reduce the supply, they ensure that it is to support prices. And when they increase supply, they are used to cool down and bring down the prices lah. So apart from these OPEC countries, right, the one that you saw earlier, these black color barrels, right, Canada, Russia, and US, right, they are part of this group called OPEC Plus. Okay, so OPEC Plus is OPEC plus other major non-OPEC countries, which is Canada, US, and Russia. So OPEC Plus is formed, right, to increase coordination and market power after the US oil reduces OPEC's dominance, because US, they produce a lot of shale oil. And together, right, OPEC Plus control roughly half of global oil production, which is why the market cares so much about this. Now, and why market cares so much is because what they say and how they react to this news, right, will actually play a part in oil prices as well. And oil prices actually flows down to other economies. What they immediately say is that OPEC Plus will stick with plan to keep oil flow steady amid turmoil, okay, which is what is happening now. And you can see that what they say is OPEC Plus plans to pause supply increase the first quarter. That means they remain the same, lah. No changes to their overall plan, but they are still awaiting clarity whether the US capture of Venezuela will impact supplies. And they haven't actually discussed what is happening, the full impact of it. And right now, they are still waiting. They say that it's still very premature to gauge how to respond to this situation that is still unfolding. So right now, the idea is they are going to maintain supply. They haven't reacted much to this news. So the only news that the market is reacting now is that US is going to control Venezuela oil. There's more oil that's going to come supply to the market. Okay. And if the US really take control of this, right, with more supply coming to the market, right? What you saw earlier, with more supply, okay, in this case, with more supply, what is probably going to happen? Prices will come down. And that is what we are seeing now based on oil market futures. You can see that crude oil, Brent oil, and natural gas, right, is down, but gold and silver is up. Okay, let me talk briefly about gold and silver. Okay, now when geopolitical risk happens, gold and silver, basic commodities, this kind of commodities will often increase. Why? Because they are treated as a hedge, okay, hedge against market uncertainty, regardless whether what risk is there. Okay, similar thing we saw during other war events that happened, like Russia, Ukraine at that point in time, and Israel and Hamas. So gold at that moment in time increase, gold and silver and other commodities increases, right? Because it is seen as a hedge, as a safe haven. Okay. Now to oil, right? Okay, when it drops, right? When you saw that these are because of the supply increases, that price will likely drop, right? What's going to probably happen, right? If we talk about companies, right, is that oil is being used in almost every aspect of the economy, every single part of the economy. All or airlines, data center, almost every economy uses oil, and with lower oil prices, what would probably happen, right, is that margins of companies will increase. They'll be increasing operating and profit margins of the every part of the economy, right? Because oil prices drop, right? And when margins increase, what it means is that companies will keep more money. They will make more profit and keep more money. And this is what the market is sensing now, which is probably why we are seeing futures are up. Okay, the S&P futures are up, because it seems like this will actually help the market or the economy, specifically the part about having more profitability, right? Or the immediate effect now, but the geopolitical ramifications of what the US did over the weekend, it may not be priced in fully yet. Let me be clear. It may not be priced in fully yet. What we are seeing now is more of the immediate reaction of what is happening. Okay. Now, if we look to the crypto market, we are also seeing it increasing. Okay. So gold is increasing. stock market is increasing, crypto is also increasing, right? All of these, and why? Okay, is also for the same reasons why gold increases with a little bit of twist lah. Okay, so for gold, why it increases was because this kind of wartime increases geopolitical risk and uncertainty, right? And investors are seeking for safe haven. So the logic of Bitcoin itself is that it is digital gold. So there's that same hash logic as well. So, and Bitcoin actually as one of the top crypto assets, it actually affects the flow down to other crypto assets. So that's why you see when Bitcoin increases, right? Generally, other crypto tickers, Ethereum, Ripple, Solana, everything will also increase accordingly. So that's what we are seeing now, or money flowing into these assets lah. Some my people debate hey, but if this is a risk on asset, is the market be willing to take more risk right now? Not necessarily. I don't think so. I think it's more of the immediate reaction of them people seeing that it is an immediate hedge to what is happening now. That's why you can see some money flowing inside over there. Okay. Now, this next part is very important. This is one detail that I think that not a lot of people is talking about, which I think is very, very important. So pay attention to this. It is actually the three-way triangle between the US, China, and Russia. Okay, now the story is still developing. The situation is still unfolding, but it's very important to be aware of this. So make sure to pay attention. But before that, if you haven't already, make sure to join my Telegram channel over here, where I share real-time market insights and investing knowledge. So it's free to join. So pause this video here, scan the QR code that you see on this video, or just click the link in the description box down below. Okay. Now, as we seen earlier, right, what is the geopolitical advantage of Venezuela? Is that they hold billions of barrels of heavy crude oil. Now, do you know who else hold large amount of heavy crude oil? It's actually Russia. And who is the largest importer of Venezuela crude oil? It's China. Okay, in fact, close to 5% of China's annual crude oil imports are actually from Venezuela, close to 5%. And in terms of crude oil refineries, that means when the companies dig out the oil, you have to refine the oil, not just leave it and you sell. Some of the largest heavy crude oil refineries in the world, right, is actually in the US companies. And it's also no coincidence. Remember what Trump said, right? That China is going to get oil during his press conference yesterday. So you can see, right? What is happening with Venezuela is not just what US is doing. It is actually affecting superpowers like China and Russia. And China has actually condemned the US capture of Maduro, right? As you can see, in fact, just hours before his capture, Maduro actually met with the Chinese counterparts just hours, guys. And after the meeting was over, then Trump captured it, and you can see what they say is that it's a serious violation of international law. And when we look at what Russia is saying, right, the politicians are saying that it is unlawful, it is destabilizing. Okay, now again, we're not here to discuss and say why are they right or wrong, but in fact, let's try to understand why are they unhappy and condemning this action. So here's what I think. The US controlling Venezuela, right, it provides strategic geopolitical leverage over both China and Russia. Now, imagine last time China and Russia were just dealing with Venezuela directly. And with Trump saying that US will now control Venezuela, okay, based on what he says, and they're going to control the oil supply, what does it mean? It just basically means that China and Russia will deal with US instead of Venezuela, potentially. Okay? And if the US gain leverage over Venezuela's oil flows, which is the largest in the world, as you can see, right? China and Russia is going to lose influence in a region that they previously used to bypass Western pressure, which is the US, right? Because Venezuela is South America, right? So they are not going to deal with US. But now if US in the picture, what it means is that, now they have to deal with US directly. And they might view this as US using this dominance to enforce and some political alignment or whatsoever, similar to past sanctions and tariffs thing that Trump has done. So in short, US control of Venezuela oil could act as a trigger that will reignite some kind of trade friction. Okay, some tensions lah that might come in, right? So we don't know what is going to happen. Again, this situation is still unfolding, which I think is very important to monitor, right? Because what if, with them condemning the action China and Russia, right? What if there's some trade implications, like they will say that, hey, you cannot just do this, we are not going to buy oil anymore, but now China is stuck in this situation where they have to deal with US and they still need the oil. So we don't know what's going to happen, but I think it's important. Not many people are actually talking about these trade war things. Everyone is talking about the immediate reaction. So it's important to see how this is will continue to unfold lah. So and what in the stock market overall, right? What we're going to see is I think we're going to see some volatility, right? So be prepared for the volatility that's going to happen as people are still digesting this news, both immediate and as well in the short term, which is in the next few weeks as we've got more information. Do expect some volatility. I think don't expect like the market to just rally crazily over this. There will be volatility, and what volatility means is opportunity, right? So don't fear, don't see this as geopolitical risk as something to fear about the market. Okay, which brings me to my next portion of things, right? How does war actually affect the stock market, right? Every time when this kind of world events happen, people get very worried to see, oh, is what's going to happen to our stocks and all. Now, let's look at history, okay? History will give us a better picture. So, these are how the S&P index has performed for different periods: 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, and 12 months after major geopolitical events. So you can see it's quite mixed. Some of it, we just look at the 12 months. You can see more of the 1 month immediate reaction. Market is actually more down than up. Okay, average is actually down by 1%. That's why I say that what we see now is the immediate reaction, but we have to see the short term, there might be some volatility lah. But you can see if we look at the 3 months, 6 months, and 12 months, on average, okay, S&P is always higher on average. Okay, even though you can see there's like probably quite a few of it down after that during the 1940 to 70s. But if you look at the recent times after the 2008 crisis, right, from 2013 onwards, right, it was only during the 2021 and 2022, after the Russia invades Ukraine and US pull out of Afghanistan, and the stock market 12 months after that, it was actually down. But take note that this also coincides with what happened with the stock market then, which is Federal Reserve actually increasing the rates lah. So it was together with the bear market in conjunction. So that's why it has some the market is down as well. So it's not because of the geopolitical events only that the market is down after 12 months or so. But overall, you can see on average, right, market is still green. Okay, for the most recent event when Hamas attacked Israel and the Iran missile, you can see that 12 months later, the market was up. So what does this tell us, right? This tells us is this, that in the long term, right, if you look in the short term, there'll be volatility, yes. But if you look in the longer term, right, geopolitical events will not affect the stock market as much as we think. Okay, in fact, if you actually zoom out all the way until 1900s to now 2025, right, you can see how the Dow Jones, basically the stock market, has performed with major geopolitical events since then. And you can see that it's a very clear uptrend. Okay, that stocks tend to go higher despite all the bad news. Okay, so you can see when you zoom out, the picture is very, very different, right? If you zoom in very close, you might see that, oh, there's a big correction. But if you zoom out, right, you can see that, oh, actually, uh, immediately, yes, there's a reaction, but in the longer term, right, it's still an uptrend, right? So what is the overall summary over here is that the long-term trend is actually still intact. Why? Because this doesn't really affect companies. If you really think about it, does it really affect the profits, the company's performance? Not really. But it's more of short-term uncertainty that will cause people to take some profit, to have some market reaction. That's why there's that short-term volatility, right? So the consensus is still the same, right? To use the volatility to find opportunities to buy into companies, right? I think that whenever this kind of news happen, right, as you can see from track record, right, it's always good to use these as opportunities and not as fear. Okay, when you can see volatility as opportunities, that's where you are able to stand out amongst people among mediocre investor who become very, very successful over time. Okay, that's all that I wanted to share. I hope that this has been helpful for all of you. So before I end off this video, I would love to connect with all of you. Okay, so this is my Facebook, right? Pause this video, scan the code to add me on Facebook. Okay, I would love to connect with all of you. I also share some updates on Facebook very regularly. In addition, okay, you can also click the link in the description box down below. All right, so I hope that you have found this very, very helpful over here. If you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.